Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a best of 5 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Protoss versus Terran from the maestros of the game tournament. We're in the top left hand corner in game number 1 on a map called Gresven. Playing with the blue Protoss pieces, we have none other than ShoWTimE and his opponent down in the bottom right with the red Terran as CVs. He goes by the name of Maru. Now, multiple people reached out to me and mentioned that this particular series is phenomenal. So, I hope you got yourself a drink. I've got myself a 2 liter of water, which is maybe not the most exciting thing to be drinking, but I've heard that this series is a banger. And then it's also an extremely long one. So we'll find out together. I mean, both players here obviously are phenomenal. Maru widely considered to be, well, the #1 player from South Korea, certainly the most accomplished tournament player from Korea, one of the very few StarCraft 2 millionaires, doing very well for himself. ShoWTimE, of course, somebody who's been playing since the early days. I think for a long time he's been overshadowed by some of the other players from the European region, but I feel like over the last year or so, he really has been on a new high, especially the last few months that I've seen him play. He has just been looking so freaking dangerous. Now, it's a good old proxy barracks right outside of the main base of the Terran player, trying to force an overreaction out of Protoss. ShoWTimE, though, does not seem to care. Good old Nexus, good old Cybercore. He's seen the gases here, so he knows at the very least that it's not going to be a complete all-in with like multiple barracks proxied on the other side of the map, and he's feeling reasonably safe. Some Protoss players have actually been skipping out those early game worker scouts. Obviously, the Storm research has been taking a nice priority lately. Terran players have become quite vocal about, let's call it their dislike. Yeah, he's boxed the probe in here, but it also means that the proxy barracks needs to rally its Reaper all the way back home first. So, not particularly an early Reaper scout on the other side of the map. Now, like I said, this particular series was played during the Maestros of the Game tournament, which is an ongoing tournament with about a $20,000 prize pool. The grand finals, the top 4 of this particular event, will be played over in Paris, which is pretty sick. So, big shout out to the tournament organizers for sending me these replays so we can go ahead and enjoy them together as well. Now, to clarify, these games were played online, but apparently the last few series of the tournament will be played at an offline venue. Okay. Stalker into Sentry. Obviously, the hallucinated Phoenixes are really nice to have. You can see that Protoss players have also steered clear a little bit as of late from going into like a Sentry first. When the patch was first new, a lot of Protoss players were really enjoying Sentry first, but it's losing a little bit of popularity. Right now, I would say that Stalker into Sentry is the most common play. Maybe though, because of this early game here and Maru being a bit of a trickster, ShoWTimE wanted to make sure that he had 2 Stalkers out before really committing to anything else. This map, by the way, is from 2023. The maestros of the game bringing it back once more, which is nice to see. It's a good map. It's actually quite interesting. When you haven't seen a map in a little while, it does feel fresh once more. This map was played it was super frequent, right? And, well, like I said, like the middle of 2023 or so, this map was in basically any series. Loads of tournament games were played on it, but after not seeing it for a couple of years, it is nice to, once more, add it back into the map pool for just a moment. Just for this tournament, though, and then a couple of the smaller online cups as well. But I'm a fan of seeing some of those old maps make a bit of a return. He's gonna try and burrow these Widow Mines in a random spot. ShoWTimE needs to be paying attention. Is he? He is not. In the meantime, though, the medevac did slip away, and yeah, ShoWTimE realizes that now. He needs to make sure that he gets enough units in the main base again, too, to try and make sure that this isn't gonna hurt. Okay, one of them does go down. The probes themselves joining in as well. Nice retargeting there. Ooh, from the Terran, but he does not quite get the clump of Protoss probes here that he was hoping for. Widow Mine did turn back around. Just sitting. Not a big deal. Just sitting out in the middle of the map. Honestly, getting 2 Stalkers at this point in the game would be really nice. Although I think it's going to be an Hallucinated Phoenix. Better than nothing, I suppose, but that'll be the end of the Widow Mine. Okay. Curious to see how Maru currently addresses playing against Protoss. So there seems to be, roughly speaking, like 2 schools of thought. The first school, 2 base all in. Pull the boys, bring the SCVs to fight. Make sure that the opponent goes down before they ever get storm done. Right? That's the first option. The second option seems to be that Bjorn-esque playstyle that we have seen lately, where he is just playing for like the hour-long game. Like, he is playing the slowest type of Terran I've ever seen him go for. And you know what? It's working. Playing the long game instead. Widowmine drop goes back into the main. He probably could have retargeted that one. A little bit unlucky there. It's because he was forced to split his attention, and the third base does go down. ShoWTimE may have had all of the workers here available, but he does not have a place for them to mine. Stalker's not quite able to really get a whole lot of work done either. There is a single Immortal available now, but the big problem here, of course, for Terran is that there is no third command center for them either. New Nexus building a little bit further south. Difficult range to reach to right now for Maru. Maru is really trying to see if he could potentially win this game right here, right now, but it's going to be... I mean, it's a lot of Protoss production still. He does get the Robo facility. That's good. Gateway is also certainly within range. In the meantime, the Stalkers, though, in the middle of the map are catching some of those reinforcing units. Banshee goes down. We saw a couple Marines already dying. Slowly but surely, though, the siege tanks are being moved forward. And at some point, they will be within range of a lot more of this infrastructure. Still, the Immortal is here, right? Keeping the sentry alive is critical. Stalkers are still going to town. He does catch a siege tank, too. SCVs are pulled away. Third Nexus is going to finish up eventually. In the meantime, Gateway up on the high ground goes down. Probes are sacrificing themselves, just trying to take some of that siege tank damage. Stalkers, though, are returning back home. And I think that's a sign that our Protoss player wants to commit. There we go. Immortal decides to tank some of the damage. Stalkers blink in. Nice little splitties here to try and mitigate some of the splash damage. And I think that is a hold. The question is, at what cost? The big problem here for Maru is that he does not know about the third.
Upgrade complete.
He has not seen the third base. It's a safe assumption to make, but he did not get confirmation of it, and he only just now starts up a third base of his own. Now the Stalkers are going to try and fish. They're going to try and fish for some kills, get a couple of snipes here and there, but I don't think he's going to have an easy way blinking into the main base here of the Terran. The way that this map is laid out obviously makes it quite difficult too. Now Maru is indeed going to see that there is quite a bit of mining here. No cloaking available on these Banshees, so that'll be the end of it. Maru apparently not concerned for any sort of Dark Templar follow-up. Decides to cancel the missile turret in favor of a supply depot. But there it is. The most feared upgrade of 2025. Good old Psystorm. So Maru definitely has created nice opportunities for himself thus far, right? But he may very well have the army advantage. How do you deal with this right now? How do you actually capitalize on that lead? Storm is the great equalizer. ShoWTimE does decide to chrono boost it out as well, just to try and get it out a little quicker. What about these Stalkers, though? They find themselves cornered. Although he decides to blink after the siege tank instead. That may have been a little bit overly ambitious. Many of these Stalkers will pay the price. Now, ironically, they've also bought a lot of time, and, well, now Storm is certainly finished. Can we recall some of those bad boys? Ugh. It's a lot of units going down. A grand total of 18 Stalkers have died this game, of which I think about half just died for one siege tank. Zealot run by, though. Going to the other side of the map now. Third base, in the meantime, is ready to go here for Maru. Finally landing it on that low ground. Ghost production has kicked in as well. So the urgency is sort of gone now for Maru. I think he's saying, okay, I like having those stalkers killed. I know Storm is going to be done. Does he expect it to come and meet him, though, in the middle of the map? Not quite. The weather forecast in this game is stormy moving forward. It's so funny because recently I did cast some games as well of ShoWTimE just entirely ignoring the High Templar and going straight into the Mass Robo play instead. That series was fascinating because he didn't make a single High Templar even though the games did run very long. It shows that there is a little bit of variety possible as well for the Protoss player, but this certainly has caught the Protoss world by storm. Lowko, you're so funny. I'm going to hit the like button on the video. Thanks, guys. All right, let's see. Ooh. Nice little feedback onto one of the ghosts. More and more of them are joining the battlefield. But I think we need a fourth base soon, Maru. I don't think we can keep sitting on 3 bases. I think we need a fourth. I think the time of timing attacks is gone. Second Robo facility coming up together with a Robo Bay. Do we actually have maps in like the official tournament map pool right now that have Carracks on them? This may be the first map pool in StarCraft 2 where we don't have a single Carrack on any of the maps. Yo. That is a statistic we need to know more about. I don't really care about these guys. Sorry, Lyoti or whatever. Carracks are cool. There's dogs! What about dogs? The dogs, by the way, these little critters that are walking around are one of the very few units that are unselectable. Believe it or not, there are many pro gamers out there that kill all of the little critters going around the map. But the dogs are untargetable. That doesn't mean they're unkillable. It's a big distinction to make. You could still kill them with like a Purification Nova or a Storm or really any sort of splash damage, but I do like that as a little touch, you know? You can you can not click them. What about this push over here though? Zealot run by, at least attempted, but great little bit of funneling here by Maru. Gets quite a few of those Zealots practically for free. Yeah, he's looking for an angle here. He needs to EMP the army before he can really go in. Proxy Nexus for ShoWTimE. Really, ShoWTimE. Is it because you have blocked your own base? Yeah, that's why. It's not a proxy base. He's accidentally blocked his own Nexus location. What about Storms over here? We have 10 Templar, by the way. I don't know where they all are. Okay, we do have a couple over here, but not too many. Yeah, there's some inside of the private jet. These are the upper echelons of the High Templar. These are like the High Templar. Or maybe they're the only Templar that aren't high. That's why they are, you know, functioning at the absolute highest levels possible. Got many questions, but it is important to bring them into the battle if you want to fight this Terran army straight up. It's a lot of Terran units here. Maru looking for an angle right now, but he did secure the 4th command center of his own. Starting up a 5th too. Cloaking field has been activated for the ghosts. Trying to wander them forward. This is a pretty choky map, right? So a lot of clumped up units here could be a problem. Fleet beacon coming up. Terran fleet beacon, that is. The fusion core. So we should be seeing the mass command centers, the liberator production. And I think one key as well, in that style that Björn is employing, is nukes. I'm a big fan of nukes. I think nukes should be added into the mix here for Terran. Very powerful. We'll have to see if Maru wants to go for any of it, but it really stresses the multitasking of a Protoss player to the max. We're gonna go for all of the luxury upgrades now. Observer speed, prism speed. I'm expecting to see After these upgrades for the Terran are done, building armor, high-sec auto-tracking, that sort of thing. Caduceus reactor coming up. Liberator ranged. Advanced ballistics is currently researching. And, you know what? Tactical nuke. Okay. Now, I don't want to be greedy, Maru, but I would like to see... I mean, if you know, I get to apparently say what I want to see and you execute on it, even though these games were played a few days ago. I would like to see multiple Ghost Academies. Not to be greedy. But that would be nice. Although, one is okay. I will allow one. ShoWTimE really wants to deny this base for the time being, but he's having a difficult time really breaking through it. Planetary is going to be here in just a moment, but the Liberators, yeah, the Liberators are very strong. Even though it's only a handful of them. Soon, there will be way more. When there's smoke, there's fire. Maru's making all the right choices now here with these particular units. He didn't really want to play this slow game, though. There's, by the way, Gravitic Drive. Interestingly enough, ShoWTimE prioritizing the Observer speed over the Prism speed. They're both done now, so it doesn't really matter too much, but usually Prism speed takes priority. Nope. Storming your own units is one of the ways of doing it. After blocking his own base, he decided to block one of his opponent's bases too. Yeah, it's a lot of Vikings, right? The Vikings are sort of like the backbone to make the Liberator shine. So you do need to have about 10 Vikings or so before you can properly go into the Liberator production. This is the Medevac Energy Regen upgrade. Caduceus Reactor. We had an upgrade way back in the day that was also named Caduceus Reactor, but had a very different mechanic. Fleet Beacon. Together with 2 additional Stargates coming up as well for ShoWTimE. So we are settling in for a proper late game right now. Maru is slipping out though with a few units now, and I think that's absolutely critical. We see a lot of these games where Protoss is freely taking the entire map, and then Terran is just sort of sitting on like 5 bases with loads of orbitals and all that. It is nice to turtle up for a while, but if you give Protoss too much wiggle room, they will just take the entire map. So I think it's important. There's those upgrades, by the way, those luxury upgrades I was talking about earlier. I think it is important to also deny expansions from the Protoss. And that's where nukes are really quite good. Still, this base over here should be easy. After that, there's this one up here, and then that one down south. ShoWTimE desperately trying to prevent that from happening. Look at the banks right now, though. Like, the banks are already looking pretty nuts. A lot of that, of course, is those additional command centers. Maru is looking to invest into the future. He's making decisions so he can send his Terran children to college at some point, but ShoWTimE has got more money in the bank right here, right now. Or I guess in the case of a Terran, the Academy. They don't use words like university or college. They go to the Academy. It sounds more sophisticated to me. Yeah, maybe university is more sophisticated than Academy. I don't know. Either way, the Liberator production, though, has really kicked in now. Problem is, this Protoss army is nimble. It's very mobile. You can actually move it around pretty nicely. But this is the type of Protoss army, though, that can actually compete with that of the Terran. But Maru is trying to see if he can choke this Protoss army out. The Zealot run-bys are decent enough, but we did see a lot of the Zealots going down. Planetary Fortress right up here now also secured. This is the first time I think that Maru actually sees that this base has been up and running for a while already. Tactical nuke! It's going to be flying towards some of the static defense here. And apparently, because of static defense for the opponent, he decides to build some of his own in the middle of the map. Radiation is not a problem for Marines and Marauders. They just stim straight in. Static defense will be gone, and if he wants to, he could kill that Nexus in a heartbeat. Still, though, if it's up to ShoWTimE, he will try and keep this all alive. Looking for the right angle is difficult. And that's the base gone, but he does get a few Liberators and quite a few Ghosts as well for his troubles. It looks like a phenomenal trade for Terran, but you still have to be careful with this sort of thing. Dark Shrine coming up. Missile turret in the middle of the map. There we go. ShoWTimE may have found an opportunity. He is, by the way, switching out of some of the High Templar in favor of Disruptors instead. +2 air weapons coming up. +3 air weapons already, though, on the horizon here for Maru, who may very well have his opponent cornered right now. Really nice flank right there on the Storm, but what about this Terran army that is able to sneak up on everything Protoss? ShoWTimE is forced to fight his way out, but he's able to reinforce this with a pylon that is right next door. Prism shows up as well. My god, that was a crazy fight. Maru really thought that he had his opponent in the perfect position, but it turned out that ShoWTimE, with those reinforcements warping in so quickly, he's got 22 gateways. Yeah, he can send in unit after unit after unit in a heartbeat, and he, of course, has been building up that bank. Maru's economy, I mean, yeah, he may have orbital commands, he may have 9 of them, but he needs money right here, right now, which he does not have. Orbital command at the third is going to go down, and honestly, ShoWTimE looks to me like he is smelling blood. He wants to go in for the kill right now. He knows that he cannot give this Terran player too much wiggle room, because we are like one wave of mules away from Maru being able to max out once more. He warped in a lot of gateway units, though, and that's always the trick, right? Sure, you can remax really quickly, but you don't necessarily want to be stuck at 200 supply worth of Zealots and Stalkers. I love the Widow Mine SimCity, by the way. Just a handful of Widow Mines, a bunch of those supply depots, making it near impossible for those Zealots to charge in and actually not just straight up die. Maybe going after this base is the right call. Yeah, 100%. I think you go after this one, and then you move towards the right. Maybe also invite the Terran outside of their own bases, though. Okay, nice dodge against that Purification Nova. ShoWTimE remaxes again. Adds on a bunch of Colossi, though, in the mix this time around. What about this expansion? I mean, these are properly upgraded Zealots. They will be able to kill that Nexus, the Terra Nexus that is, in just about a heartbeat. ShoWTimE goes for a load of additional gas geysers right now of his own, and he has taken his 50% of the map now. My only concern here for ShoWTimE is that he's got army units that aren't super useful in like a maxed out fight versus a maxed out fight. So I do think it's critical that the Protoss keeps on fighting here, but you can see those EMPs are so powerful. One EMP to effectively reduce like half of this army's HP. Still, Maru is flat broke. It's very odd. Like, you have so many orbital commands, you've got so much infrastructure. I would not mind seeing a round of mules land on that base. We did, by the way, also have the Dark Templar as an opportunity right now for ShoWTimE. I would not mind seeing a bunch of them roam the map just to soak up more energy out of those orbital commands. Yeah, and Maru is getting some hyper cost-effective trades here. Lovely little Zealot run by over here, though, up north. If we look at the resources lost, gas-wise, it's pretty much identical, but you can tell here there's about 50 Zealots worth of minerals more lost on the side of the Protoss. But slowly but surely, with more of those Zealots dying, we are starting to add more sophisticated units into the mix. When supply opens up, ShoWTimE is replacing them with that, well, slower moving force. He did saturate the gases, even though he is kind of running low on them. Okay, there's a base over here in the middle that does not have the gases taken. 5,000 minerals is a bit much, but it also does mean 50 additional Zealots, which is not bad. This Nexus is ambitious. Did he have to kill his own pylon in order to take this base? Maybe. I would imagine Terran probably already took care of that pesky problem. What about this base over here, though? This is where the mules are coming from, right? This is where they are mining That's an orbital command down the drain, but Maru once more may have just found an opportunity to corner his opponent, but then again, those storms are absolutely mighty. Again, a big warp in over here. The Vikings are forced to retarget onto the Prism. An absolute bloodbath right over here. We are going to need more warp-ins, and I feel like that is the absolute key. ShoWTimE has resources to spend, but Maru is, for all intents and purposes, broke. May I just remind you that this is game number 1 of a best-of-5 series. These guys are extremely evenly matched. And both players, well, they're happy to play the macro game. With those gateways once more coming off cooldown though, ShoWTimE is able to send in the reinforcements. He's now leading this particular supply count game for, well, about 60, so that's significant. He's trying to set up a surround though. Yep, this is the killing move right here for ShoWTimE. He knows that this Terran army is going to have to lift or fight and die, and that's exactly what ends up happening. GG is called. ShoWTimE wins game number 1. Okay, next up, we find ourselves on Maganatha. Twilight Council coming up. But what are you up to, little probe? Are we doing a cheeky little pylon right now? Well, we had 100 minerals. He decides to go back into the probe production. Oh, yeah. Okay, ShoWTimE mixing it up a little bit. It's a pretty quick proxy, too. Thus far, actually, no scouting, I don't think, at all for Maru. So, for all he knows, there's not even a Protoss player out there. Maybe the map is dark and full of Terrans. You never know. Oh, is that what we're doing, ShoWTimE? Really? It's a Dark Templar rush. How do we feel about Dark Templar rushes at this level of StarCraft? Well, you know what? I miss them. I'm very nice to see it coming back. The main issue, though, is that it's just difficult to actually get the job done. World-class StarCraft 2 players like Maru have phenomenal crisis management. And even when you do catch them off guard without any detection at all, in a situation where 90% of the StarCraft 2 player base would have to tap out immediately, Maru is the type of guy that can still figure that sort of thing out, just with clever control and buying enough time. Still, though, it can absolutely wreak havoc on the Terran economy. Let's see. Prism is going to go across. Dark Shrine, though, is done. And there it is. One invisible man. What about the Prism or the Medevac? It's one Hellion, by the way, masquerading as a Widow Mine. Okay, couple probes, not bad. What about the invisible man? Na 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 na. And slice! 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 Both players end up taking some eco damage. Hold position over there on the edge. Third base does go down. A Raven coming up right now for Maru. And this is actually a bit of a disaster here for the Terran player. I mean, obviously the scans are really good, but the scans also come at the cost of what could have been a mule. Oh, ShoWTimE actually optimizing here for army kills. That is curious. He actually purposely sliced the Marines there rather than the SCVs. I think he's saying, yo, I've already done enough eco damage. Your only goal right now is probably going to be some form of all-in. So I will settle for unit kills instead. And I don't mind it. Bunker coming up, though, or it's already done here on the low ground, so the Stalker follow-up could be at least held. But this has a real potential right now for ShoWTimE to win the game. Do you see see that Raven? No, he did not quite have the vision of it. ShoWTimE using the hallucinated shade over here, or the shade of the Adept, to just see where some of these units are located, but... For now, honestly, no reason to rush in. I feel like the only way in which Maru can win this game from here is if Protoss decides to rush in right now and donate a bunch of units. You've got a third Nexus up and running. You may as well chill. Okay, so Templar Archives right now coming up. We will be adding on a whole load of gateways as well. Ooh, second and third factory. Really? Okay, so Maru's saying, look, I am in a terrible position. My economy sucks. My army sucks. Everything sucks, but I can't really die right now. So what is my potential win condition? You may as well give Terran Mech a shot. Terran Mech is really good at a few things. Primarily, it's really good to not die. When you have enough siege tanks, maybe we're gonna go Cyclone Mech, actually. Could very well be possible, but if there's enough siege tanks out, it's very difficult for anybody to attack into it. Maru will be trying to use some of those siege tanks as well to leverage his way into a third base. Third command center is done right now, and he has been doing a good job rebuilding everything. Armory coming up. We are indeed... Ooh, sniping some of the siege tanks here. Nicely done by ShoWTimE. But we are indeed, going into what seems to be Cyclone Mech. I mean, it's a lot of siege tanks for the time being, but he is getting the lock-on improvement. ShoWTimE, though, already up to 4 bases by the time that the Terran is going up to 3. And I am no math magician, but I believe 4 is a bigger number than 3. Now, that was a weird blink. Ugh, very ugly blink. That was the most Protossy blink I've seen in my life. He just blinked in, killed nothing, and then ran away while losing half his units. What in the world was that? That was so ugly. I was embarrassed, man. I feel like we need player cameras for that one. ShoWTimE definitely having a sheepish look right there. Weird. Not the end of the world, though. Mech Field Accelerator is done. We have no Cyclones. Bunker is done here, too. We have 1 Marine. Hellbit production, fair enough. But it's going to be siege tanks as the backbone for the time being. I mean, this is pretty much exactly, though, what our Terran player is hoping for, right? Like, he wants the Protoss to fight into these tanks. Look at this little wall off here that Maru is creating. I think he knows that there might be a Protoss attack imminent, and... well, here it is. Zealots through the choke points. Stalkers through as well. Good storm over there, but the anti-armor missile is not to be underestimated. Storm onto a bunch of Hellbats is something we don't see every day, but yeah, good hold. Good hold. Look at the supply. ShoWTimE, I think it's time to not do this. Look, I know it's tempting because you were so far ahead not too long ago, and it's still totally fine, but we are like one of those engagements away right now from the game being completely evened up. I don't think he really killed a single siege tank there, did he? Well, we're gonna try again. Ay, 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 it's another ugly attack, though. And just like that, ShoWTimE has to make the walk of shame back home. I think we need to go, hold up, back home. No. No, your home is on the other side of the map, ShoWTimE. Okay, I'll try one more time. Back home. Oh, God. I mean, it's... I don't think it's gonna go better any Like, we've already thrown 2 armies at this wall and it didn't kill anything. I don't think the third one's gonna do better now with the siege tank numbers increasing. $83 workers, by the way, for both of them now. Raven's being used as a core unit, by the way, I do kind of love. Anti-armor missile has been phenomenal so far. Very, very useful. Okay. A little bit of a Hellion run by. Although they got sliced up by men that have swords for arms. Little Zealot drop as well inside of the natural expansion. But Cyclones are going to be able to join up with some of those Hellbats and get the job done. ShoWTimE is going to run his units at this wall. I can almost feel it. It'll be a moment where every Protoss player who's watching this needs to close their eyes for just a moment. Oh, maybe he doesn't. He starts up a Stargate. A Stargate. Command centers are added into the mix once more. And you know what? I do have to hand it to Maru here. He is slowly leveraging his way back into this game. It's been a difficult one. He was horribly behind. It required a few misplays from the opponent. But I honestly don't hate his position anymore. Speed cloaked Banshees. A whole bunch of them going into a base. And is this the type of army that can kill a mineral line in a heartbeat? Now, they do take a very long time trying to... No, you don't want to target, I don't think. Yeah, you just attack move here. Targeting individual workers doesn't make sense with this many Banshees. Experimental play as well from Maru, it seems, as he's targeting individual units. It takes 2 Banshees to one-shot a probe. That means that with, like, what? Like 7 Banshees, which is what this originally was, I think, you're still one-shotting a probe. New base in the top section of the map is going to be acquired by Maru. Obviously, the downside of Terran Mech, right, is that you are so split up. You're so spread thin if you are taking those additional bases. Like, the first few are easy to take. But then, I mean, you can only go up to 200 supply. At some point, you have to make the call where you're going to position those siege tanks. And if you try to cover too many of your bases, you may not actually have enough against one main attack from the Protoss. Shadow Strike, by the way, which is the Dark Templar Blink ability, is now done as well here for ShoWTimE. We're going up to 7 factories. It's a lot. This Battle Mech army is pretty quick, though. Some of the Protoss units are indeed going to get recalled towards the top right-hand corner. And that means that they won't be thrown at the wall again. That's nice. 4 additional Stargates and a Fleet Beacon. So we're going to have 5 Stargates all available at the same time. I'm assuming we're going to be playing Tempest. Honestly, carriers are not a terrible idea either. Especially if we're going to go into these attacking upgrades already. Banshees have decided to swoop back around again, and this time around they are going to be able to clear the mineral line. Except for you. Speedy Banshees into the main base. 4 command centers on the production tab. It's so funny. We rarely see Terran Mech against Protoss. We've seen Clem experiment with it a little bit as of late. And it didn't really seem to be too good. But you can see that once you get the ball rolling, and that's usually the difficult part. But once you get to this position, it is an army that needs to be respected. Maru is doing an excellent job just controlling as much as he can. The Sim City here is big, right? Like, the way in which he's produced all of these choke points and the way that he's making it difficult and really, like, maximizing the damage that those siege tanks can provide is really critical. There is, by the way, the carrier production, and Scan immediately reveals it. Thor production begins because of it. Okay. Thors are really quite good against carriers, but it's not a situation we commonly see. Still, again, this is difficult. Lovely Storms. This is real difficult for Terran. You just can't really maneuver these slow units like siege tanks and cover the entire map with them. Some of the lost supply, though, is immediately going to go to additional Thor production. Building armor is actually a really nice upgrade here. Orbital command is not going to go down. But ShoWTimE is making it very difficult for Maru to expand. In the meantime, he is taking bases left, right, and center. I do think, though, that like the previous game, we can once more see 5 bases here for Protoss. Or, sorry, for the Terran player, relatively easily. Taking a 6th from there, maybe this one on the high ground. But that still leaves so many bases unaccounted for. And ShoWTimE should be able to outmine the opponent quite nicely, but he doesn't really have the work account for it right now. It seems like his strategy is to try and throw stuff at the walls and then hope for the best. But it's a big wall. And Maru already has a phenomenal army. Orbital command is going to go down eventually, I think. Well, maybe. Ay, it lives again. Dude, that's like the 5th time that this orbital didn't die. Cloaked Banshees here as well. I would love to see them target down the High Templar. Finally, Maru moves out onto the map, though. It's just a bunch of Hellions for now, but that's okay. They will get the job done eventually. Fights in these speed-up circles are always messy. He did find the Dark Shrine now, realizes where it is. Okay, we are gonna get into one of those unique situations where it will be Mass Thor against Mass Carrier. I haven't seen that in a very long time. When's the last time we've seen like Mass Thor in general in a game of StarCraft? $33 probes, 53 SCVs have died. A lot of losses around the map. But I thought Maru was dead at minute 6, and now we're here. And he seems to be settling in for just a long macro game. Now, there are these bases, by the way, right next to the watchtowers. Rarely do we ever see them mining. Here's the carriers moving in. Maybe this is the game where it will be coming up. Oh, Thors do outrange the carriers, or... yeah, it's difficult to say. When the interceptors are fully deployed, the carriers can actually move backwards to effectively create some extra range for them. But you can see when the Thors are firing, they deal an insane amount of damage. 2 carriers died there, not a single Thor. And the command center, again, it lives. Base up here. Also not killing the orbital command this time around. And that's going to be, I guess, the Dark Templar there blinking in, trying to get the kill, not quite achieving the job, and then dying as Archons. I think the Thors, by the way, are mostly just attack moves. I thought that Maru was going to right-click or attack move onto the carriers, but I think they're just on a regular attack move. So they're busy killing interceptors, and somehow, some way, they killed them real fast. Lock-on here of the Cyclones also doing quite well. Yeah, the Thors are actually just destroying the interceptors. I did not expect them to be that effective at it at all. Okay, can we finally kill this base, ShoWTimE? This is attempt number 69. And the command center does die. It's come at the cost of probably 20 plus Protoss units, but the job's done. Here we go again. Yeah, look at the Thors. The Thors are actually just destroying the interceptors. Their attack speed is actually surprisingly quick. Interceptors have 80 HP in total, so 40 shields, 40 health. And they do need to be respected usually, but it kind of feels like the Thors are just one-shotting everything. Economically speaking, ShoWTimE has been leading this game since about minute 1. Now, he's also been losing a hell of a lot more resources, and that makes up for most of that difference. So this, 20 minutes in, could still be either player's game. kind of funky to see both +3. Or actually, that's a +2 right here. And the +3 for the air weapons coming up all at the same time. How many Banshees, by the way, have we had? 6 have died? Only 6? Huh. We've had 10 Banshees in the game. Kind of felt like there's been like twice as many. I think using the carriers here to intercept some of these SCVs on the return trip, I think would be nice. I think you can fight with the carriers from that location. Thors are going to have a difficult time moving in. Either way, ShoWTimE is going to try and see if he can target the Thors themselves. So that is one of them down the drain. Okay, Disruptor Nova is not bad. Getting quite a few kills there, but it was also not cheap on the side of the Protoss, who's losing, well, quite a few of his units on the way home. 14 High Templar get warped in. That is going to be a bunch of Archons, but now the siege tanks and the Thors are moving forward. And what started off as a way for ShoWTimE to kill the high ground base is turning into a tug of war where ShoWTimE is going to lose his high ground base. In the meantime, the Banshees move to the bottom left-hand corner. Not bad at all. Maru is going to be attacked here by ShoWTimE moving in around the site. Mech army is slow, so it does have to wander back home. Warping inside of the main base too. I mean, he's trying to outpace this Terran army. Doing a pretty good job in that department, but in straight-up engagements, Protoss does not seem to win against this Terran force. And usually, if that's the case, you need to have money in order to remax in a heartbeat. But ShoWTimE doesn't have that resource count at the moment. Banshees are going to be able to kill the base, it looks like, too. Prism is flying by, and Idols. Ugh, ugly. Ugly. Could have flown by it. Idols on top of the missile turret that ends up falling. Maru's trying to catch this Terran, or this Protoss army as it's trying to retreat back home. Not quite the case. Okay. Not quite able to catch up with them. Still, maybe he can cut off the retreat over here. This has been a very strange game. But Maru is honestly navigating this chaos really, really nicely. He was forced into this. It's an unusual style for Terran to play against Protoss. To say the least, we rarely see this. Well, you can tell here that Maru is not somebody who picked up Terran last week. Perfectly capable of getting the job done, even with these weird compositions. Still, though, it is not over yet. My main concern is just the main fight. I don't think ShoWTimE can really do it. I don't think he has the firepower. Maybe, though, with good storms. Maybe with a couple of good Novas. And obviously, he does outpace this army quite nicely. So if you could run circles around it, that would be big. Oh, bunch of the siege tanks leading the charge. And this could be a good start of something here for ShoWTimE, who snipes like 5, 6, 7 siege tanks here for practically free. A lot of Thors are still remaining, but this is now into a choke point as well. Those Thors are gonna get surrounded by a bunch of Zealots going in around the back. The Thors did finish the job, and all of the carriers are gone. But that means that they are the only units remaining. But look at them just standing their ground. Loads of SCVs also repairing really does help. GG. Wow. Next up, we find ourselves on Terran Mech. I'm honestly a little bit surprised with how powerful those Thors really were. I didn't expect for them to be nearly as effective as they actually were. We rarely see them against Protoss, but they did great against the carriers. And they did surprisingly good against, well, just Stalkers as well. I don't know if Maru wants to play Terran Mech straight up against Protoss. I doubt it. But it seems like if you're forced into it, or at the very least if you feel like you need to make mass siege tank, it is not a bad idea. Like, it is certainly a viable style. And obviously, we've seen this against Zergs, right? Where you start off with Terran Mech and then you add on Ghosts at some point. Ghost Mech is extremely difficult to stop for a Zerg player. It is certainly a viable style as well against Terran, or against Protoss, rather. Ghosts really are phenomenally good against, well, pretty much everything Protoss. I wouldn't mind seeing some of them added into the mix as well next time, but Maru didn't even need it. He could have certainly avoided it, but he decided not to add them into the mix. Unexplored territory in StarCraft 2, even after 15 years. Full wall off right there for ShoWTimE, just to make it difficult for these raiders here of the Terran player to get in. Matter of fact, drop though is going to go across the map. How much damage can this push deal? A lot of unit production here from Maru early on. He really liked the Banshees in the previous game, so we're bringing some of them back again. Push goes around the site though, trying to see if he could maybe go after this Nexus. This is the third base of Protoss, but getting the kill on it, of course, would be big. Not if you have to pay your entire army though. Yeah, Maru has been desperately trying not to be forced to play the slow games, it seems. But then when he's forced into it, he's really competent at playing it, which is kind of funny. There's almost like a little bit of frustration in this gameplay, you know, where he's trying to get the games over with a little bit quicker, but then at some point he sighs and he's like, I guess. Here we go again. Add on the armory and then add on the additional upgrades. We go into the mass command center. We build up the siege tanks. We sit back and we relax. We'll get the job done the slow way, but he doesn't really seem to be signing up for that playstyle if he doesn't need to. Banshee goes in. A little bit of damage done, nothing all too crazy though. Shield battery there, making everything a little bit more manageable. And you know what? You know what? We are going back to Terran Mech. This time around, he is going straight to Terran Mech. Now that is spicy. Then she moves in around the site, gets another kill. Observers nearby though, together with the Stalkers. We will be going for that very mobile approach once more, it seems. Although, last time around we did go for the Cyclone upgrade early, even though he didn't have any Cyclones. May as well research it if you have the resources for it right now. And you will be going into the good old Speed Banshees too. Maybe this is how you solve Protoss versus Terran, right? I mean, a lot of Terran players are hating the way that the High Templar plays at the moment. A lot of Terran players are frustrated with this particular matchup. Maybe this is the way. Siege Tank Banshee. It's a weird unit composition. But it's not bad. Armory right now on the back it is indeed. We'll probably go into the armor upgrades primarily, although at least that's what you do against Zerg. Maybe in this matchup you would prefer going into the attacking research, because this is so siege tank heavy. Storm, of course, very good against low HP targets, right? Like, for example, Marines. Not so useful against siege tanks. Although it deals flat damage, so it's not a terrible idea. High Templar will probably be coming up, but what about this push right now? ShoWTimE shows up with an awful lot of units on move command for a long time, though, and he already used the charge cooldown right before that fight really started up. Not the ideal engagement at all right here for ShoWTimE again. I feel like that charge kind of screwed him over there. Those Zealots saw something. They charged. They then were move commanded mid-charge, and then the charge was on cooldown. Look, just like that. It goes back on cooldown even when it doesn't hit the target that it was charging at. There are moments where you actually want to turn off the auto cast of the charge ability. Ultimately, though, that was 19 SCVs going down, right? Even though the fight wasn't ideal, 19 SCVs is very notable. ShoWTimE effectively trying to shut down this Terran Mech switch before it really lays eggs. And I didn't know it, but Terran players lay eggs. Yeah. One of the best kept secrets of Terran players across the world. I believe they are mammals, but similar to the platypus, they're venomous and they lay eggs. They're probably Australian. Anyways. We do indeed have Storm coming up right now, and we will be going into the Stargate again. Already photon cannons are being set up because apparently he's been frustrated by these roaming Banshees that are going around the map. Oh, not bad. I mean, you can feedback them all you like. It deals a bit of damage. At least they won't be able to cloak, but that's still 11 probes down the drain. Yeah, when you think about it, the Platypus and Terran players have a lot in common. Honestly, the parallels are kind of insane. Either way, Blue Flame is going to kick in right now for Maru in just a few seconds' time. And the siege tank production is well underway. Banshee in the meantime, though, trying to just be a nuisance on the other side of the map. Just trying to be a little bit annoying. Phoenix, though, coming up as well here for ShoWTimE. Okay, so what do you do usually against Terran Mech? Well, if you're forced to play the macro game, units like Tempest, units like Immortals, anything that's like strong and powerful against mechanical units or armored units is really strong, right? Like that's a really good choice. Alternatively, what we normally see at the highest level is Protoss players shutting this down long before this point. So for example, 4-gate Blink Stalker. How does a Terran Mech opener deal with 4-gate Blink Stalker? It's not easy. 4-gate Blink Stalker, bunch of warpins in the main base, main push over at the third. Very difficult to hold. Now we're past that point already, but ShoWTimE is still playing with the same mindset. Trying to use some of the multitasking here and effectively abuse the fact that Terran Mech can't really be in the same locations as Terran Bio can be. You just don't have as mobile of an army. He is adding on a bunch of Phoenixes. I think it's mostly just to deal with the Banshees, and they really were a thorn in the side in the previous game. New Nexus coming up. Alternatively, right, you can do that soft contain strategy where you're effectively saying, yo, you can have 4 bases but never a 5th. And in the meantime, I'll get like 12 of them myself. Seems to be what ShoWTimE is employing this time around, so I think we are going to be going... Yeah, he's already up to almost triple digits worth of probes. We are indeed playing the big macro game this time around. Maru going for the slower, more methodical approach, trying to take the entire map if possible. ShoWTimE forced to take it a little bit easier. New factories are in the main base, though. We are all the way up to 8. Much like an 8 Rex, 8 factory is about the most you can really reasonably afford. You know what? If we are going to be playing this big, slow game, I would love to see Ghosts. I think Ghosts would be a really, really nice addition. Like, if you're thinking about the ultimate army, Ghosts would always be part of it. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would like to see it. Gravitic Drive coming up. +1 air weapons added into the mix. We're going up to 14 gateways here in total. Here's the additional command centers added into the mix as well, though, here for the Terran. Robo facility number 2 coming up as well here for ShoWTimE. So we are settling in for another macro game. This has been the... Yeah, this is the 3rd game of the series, and we've had big macro games every single game so far. It seems like ShoWTimE is also in agreement that indeed this is going to be a longer game. Judging by the fact that he is indeed already knocking down those rocks. Likewise, though, look at the minimap. He is taking every base that he could ever really mine. So he's saying, yo, you can have your side of the map. I will take my side +1. And at that point, I can basically play like a Zerg player would. We can just be as greedy as I can be. I can just flood the map with units. And we will probably be okay in the long run. Maru instead, though, will likely be employing here a much more slow-moving army, right? Just slowly making his way up to this point and eventually taking down, well, with like a bulldozer approach, as much of the map as possible. Or, alternatively, he could slow push his way to multiple expansions. There's only 4 golden mineral fields here. Yeah, and he is starting to move out now with the siege tanks. Terran obviously doesn't have as much supply caught up in workers here, and that's one of the advantages of the orbital command. You can replace some of your SCVs with mules, and mules don't cost any supply. So that means that you have more supply available for an even larger army. Ambitious prism movement. Somehow, some way, by the way, we still have some of those Marines from the early game. Just joining in. I think Maru expected them to die a long time ago, but somehow, some way, your best lifespan at the very least as a Terran Marine is when you're playing mech. Good anti-armor missile, though. I guess the anti-armor missile is taking the spellcaster role here, right? Rather than EMPs from the Ghost. That'll be what we're doing. A couple of Phoenixes swoop in as well. ShoWTimE's army is maxed, but this army is not even remotely good enough. He's got a large chunk of zealots as well, right over here. He can lift up some of the siege tanks, maybe. Yeah, not a bad idea. It's a lot of High Templar here. Siege tanks, though, are already within range of the Nexus. Half of the Terran army is returning back home. Storms are nice, but I mean, that's 5 High Templar down the drain. In the meantime, the other half of the Protoss is currently on the right side of the map. Push on the left has been cleaned up. ShoWTimE is going to be able to replenish these units immediately. Can he at least kill the orbital and the planetary here? No, he does kill one of the command centers, but the planetary on the high ground will be mass repaired. Without the siege tanks nearby, though, the Immortals can just fight against this mech army straight up. Backing up to the safety of some of the photon cannons. Are the Marines still around? Ah, one of them just died. 4 of them are still around, though. Stalkers again moving in towards the left. ShoWTimE taking one of the bases that is most definitely one of the Terrans. Maru trying to suffocate one of the expansions here. ShoWTimE, though, has already given up on it. He's saying, yo, I'll take your base on the left instead. And I'll also take down your 3rd. Orbital command goes down. ShoWTimE is playing this very, very nicely. Knocking down the rocks that he previously, well, knocked down himself already. Taking him out, though, permanently. Nexus in the bottom right will likely die at some point, but this is loads of SCVs dying. Stalkers blink across. It's a little bit messy. But I really do like what ShoWTimE is doing here across the board. The main problem now is that Terran already has been mining so much. It's only 2 orbitals, by the way, that remain. 2 orbital commands is very little. Is this the old main base repositioning? It is, yeah. That's one of the 2 orbitals. Siege tanks in the meantime, though, are sieged up on the right side of the map. Stalkers and Zealots are starting to break through everything, and in all of this chaos, I do really like ShoWTimE's army movement, but my concern is that he doesn't have the amount of resources needed to sustain this. Maru's bank, even though he's been mining far less, is actually bigger. Now, what about this fight right over here, though? The Nexus didn't die, and the Immortals were recalled earlier, so that is a really, really good trait there for ShoWTimE. He took down, like, what, 6 siege tanks or so, just like that. You can tell in the resources lost here that ShoWTimE has been up with his back against the wall for a while, but if you look at the mini-map now, it's becoming pretty apparent that Protoss just has way more stuff. The ball is very much so in Maru's court. ShoWTimE has got practically twice the income right now, and a huge army. Now, Maru's army is not bad. Probes are, okay, transferred. An ambitious transfer, but somehow, some way, 3 of them are still alive. This Nexus is going to go down, but it's mostly because ShoWTimE is deciding not to move into the sieged up tanks, although I wonder if he could have. Cyclone count is high, though. No abductions, no blinding clouds here, which is what we should see Zork players use against this type of army. Do you think the Mothership would be worthwhile here? What about Mass Tempests? A SkyTools transition would not be a bad idea, but for now, ShoWTimE is focusing on a ground Protoss ball. Nice little counterattack here, though, by Maru. Only a small amount of Zealots can be warped in because ShoWTimE is maxed. He needs to trade out units if he wants to get the job done. Fighting onto a planetary fortress is one of the plans of all time, but it'll be an expensive one. He's backing up and storming his way out of this problem. Maru, though, does lose an awful lot of units there as well. This did open up the opportunity to warp in reinforcements in the top left-hand corner, so the expansion will live. A lot of Protoss units did die. But he sustained some of his own economy while shutting down one of the bases of the opponent. And while that's rarely cost-efficient, I think it's okay. I think it's okay here for the Protoss. Maru's bank has been fully depleted now. And the orbital command count is still just atrocious. Honestly, Dark Templar here with Blink would also be kind of sick. It's funny because we just never really see this style so much, right? But it's certainly something where both players can still be experimenting a lot more. Nexus is going to die again. Double Prism. Wow, he sent in 2 Prisms just to get one behind the enemy lines. And even that one is not gonna, well, be available for much longer. ShoWTimE takes another base again on the far left side. And we keep on seeing this tug of war between all of those expansions. In the straight up fight, maybe the Terran army is better. He can chase, but he cannot catch. Unless ShoWTimE wants to be caught. And that's one of the planetary fortresses going down. What about this army over here? It looks like ShoWTimE isn't entirely sure what he's facing off against, so he decides to just simply back up and retreat. Great movement here by ShoWTimE, though. Honestly, very impressive. It's difficult to read these type of games, but I think he's doing a good enough job so far. Finally, Maru is striking back again. Feels like it's been a while since he has actually been able to get some sort of damage done. Decides to go again for the base in the far bottom right. Simultaneously, he's building up that one on the left. Siege tank numbers, though, are still high. And they can, of course, reach over those mineral fields pretty nicely. I wonder if you can add Widow Mines in the mix here as the Terran player. Maybe against Storm it's tough. It's a bit of an unconventional unit, I guess, but there's still certainly some room for that, too. At the very least, it would give Terran a little bit more map control, because Maru really is up with his back against the wall now for a while already. And it's a different sort of situation than what we had in the previous game, right? ShoWTimE decided to go Mass Carrier then. The Thors absolutely tore him apart, so even though he does have a Stargate, he never really hadn't done anything else other than a couple of Phoenixes to fight the Banshees with, and he seems to be content to fight ground with ground. Normally, that's not something we see against siege tanks, because siege tanks really are the perfect anti-ground unit, but they can only be sieged up in one location at a time, and then they become stationary. Okay. ShoWTimE decides to chill. I don't mind it. Terran has got to be mostly broke at this point, despite having a reasonable amount of mining. When you look at the map here as a Protoss, and you know that you've got 84 workers, you surely should have way more income than what the Terran could ever have. Some static defense is being added into the mix soon, and that is something that siege tanks can make very quick work of, but... Okay. This has, by the way, been like an hour and a half already, hasn't it? Game 3 of the best of 5. Ay, 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 ay. Shield batteries coming up. Storms are nice, but I think it's time to give up on this base yet again. The thing is, though, when this army over here moves into the bottom right, then suddenly the expansion on the left side is going to be more vulnerable. The longer that the game goes on, the more split up the Terran forces will be. Just with the nature of the, well, the game progressing and the mineral fields being further and further apart, Terran is gonna have to focus all of their attention on one of those at some point. You have to split up your units. I think having the mothership just for like an extra recall, just to be able to reposition your units, is really nice. Maru, by the way, is starting up command centers. 24 minutes into the game, Maru's like, perfect, let me make 3 command centers. Well, if ShoWTimE has any say in the matter, he will try to deny this, but the siege tanks here, man, he needs to be so careful. Maru is hoping that his opponent walks within a range of the siege tank line. A new Immortal will be joining in the fray in just a moment. Ay, ay, ay. Taking a page out of the Zork's book here. ShoWTimE wants to go for a mass tech switch, it seems. He's making a whole load of Stargates. I wouldn't mind seeing a second Cybercore just to be able to get those upgrades going a little bit quicker. Maru did now secure that far bottom right base. And with it, it's also creating a staging ground for Maru to potentially be moving a little bit further up. He needs to be careful, though, that he doesn't get surrounded by the amount of Immortals. We have 15 Immortals right now. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the Immortals are having a grand old time. Not all of the siege tanks are able to fire at the same moment, but is there enough firepower for the Terran to hold this? I don't think so. Still, though, there's layers to this. Like an onion or an ogre, there's layers to these siege tanks. Maru getting a little bit ahead of himself. He's gonna be knocked down a couple of steps, and that's the orbital command here, forced to be going away. SCVs are dying, and maybe most importantly, Maru lost a ton of his army. Now the Tempests are coming. I think Tempests are a good... Never mind. He cancelled all of them. I think the Tempests are a good choice. So he made 4 Stargates and then decided, nah. Actually, nah. Maru's flat broke, though. And this is why I'm always a little bit concerned about these Terran Mech armies in general, right? Like, yeah, you can make these really nice, powerful armies that are near unbeatable, but the longer it goes on, at some point it sort of fizzles out. It does the same thing against Zerg. Zerg and Protoss just have a way easier time against this slow-moving Terran army to gobble up as much of the map as possible, and while never do you really get cost-efficient trades here, as either a Zerg or a Protoss, you just have way more resources to work with. Look at the banks right now. Maru barely able to max out. ShoWTimE has got resources for days. Aw. A mineral line that's being shared. Make love, not war, guys. Alright, let's see. This army needs to be addressed, though. This Protoss army here is strong, but I'm wondering if pushing into this is the right call. It seems to me that ShoWTimE is setting up a surround. Here we go. He's pulling the trigger right now. Is there enough Terran to prevent the onslaught of Protoss coming in from every single side? Reinforcing units are being warped in right now. The storms are blanketing as much as is possible. Only one flank still remains, and I think ShoWTimE just barely has enough here. I mean, he is gonna get pushed away, but he has got so many resources in the bank that I think that trade is fine. It's not a cost-effective one, but look at that warp in. 16 High Templar. Some of them will become Archons for sure. Now the Tempest production has kicked in too. ShoWTimE needs to spend his bank and then go again. It's gonna take a while, a good couple minutes to spend the bank, but I don't think Maru really has the opportunity to turtle up too much. If Maru is given too much time here, though, I think this can work out in favor of the Terran. Tectonic destabilizers coming up. One important thing to note is that these flying units are at +2/+1. All the other units have been fully upgraded thus far. Tempest obviously deal an insane amount of damage as it is anyways, but they certainly do benefit from a lot of those upgrades too. Maru really needs to fire up either Viking or Thor production here, because at this point he doesn't have any anti-air. He will see the Tempest for the first time right now, and I don't think he'll be happy about it. He doesn't have a counter to the Tempest. Yeah, I mean, Cyclones are good enough, I suppose, but the Cyclones will not be able to catch up with them if everything goes even remotely according to plan here for ShoWTimE. Little Zealot run by in the far bottom right, I would not mind seeing, but ShoWTimE is seeing blood in front of his eyes right now. He's tunnel vision, trying to see if he could win the game with this next upcoming engagement. I would not mind seeing those Zealots, though, split themselves off from the main pack. But I think he wants to move in as soon as he sees the siege tanks unsiege. I would imagine at least that is the plan. Here we go. Here we go. Oh. Maru times GG. He did not want to play that one out for the fans. Next up, we find ourselves on Incorporeal. Looks like Maru maybe is a little sick and tired of how these games have been going thus far. At the very least, it does not look like he is willing to go and play a long game again. At the very least, it's looking like he wants this game to be over really fast. Now, one thing that is it is important to keep in mind, okay? Professional gamers, bear with me. Professional gamers are human. I know, it's sometimes easy to forget, but I am about 99% sure, I mean, the jury is not yet out on max specs, but I am fairly convinced that the others are all human. And if that's, maybe Cero isn't either, I don't know, man. But if that's the case, playing 3 half-hour-long games is, generally speaking, very, very exhausting. So, do you... I feel like ShoWTimE is fine. I feel like ShoWTimE doesn't care. ShoWTimE plays these type of games day in and day out. Maru, though, is, well, the type of guy that will happily cheese you a few times, too, if he doesn't want to... If he doesn't want to play it out for too much longer. Obviously, he's had wrist issues, too, in the past, and I feel like those type of games that we just witnessed are, not ideal. Playing the super long games out might not necessarily feel great, although, yeah, playing Terran Mech is kind of chill. What about this, though? So we've got ourselves a single tech lab, and then 1 Immortal and 1 Marine are being produced at once. ShoWTimE is playing a 1-base opener, right? He's been scouting. He's seeing that there's not a whole lot going on. Obviously, he knows Maru's general nature as well when it comes to these type of series, and he wants to take a base, but if he can make a Void Ray or 2, it's going to be amazing. Still, Maru is going to hit right now. And this is before any sort of flying unit can really be out. He is on a timer. ShoWTimE knows it. Oh, he's actually just given up on it altogether. Okay, wow. Yeah, Maru was hoping he would come across a low ground expo, right? Not the case here at all. So this is a bit of a disaster right now for the Korean Terran. Oracle will be available. Oracle obviously also a phenomenal unit, right? Maru's already making the flight of shame all the way back home. Command center right now built right here for the Terran player. And maybe he was intending on this game being over by now. Well, that is not going to happen. Oracle did get recharged. You could easily kill the Marines. It's only 3 of them. Yep. Cool play right there, Jimmy. But now you're dead. He's running away with the Marines just to soak as much energy out of that Oracle as is possible. Next is coming up right here on the low ground. And now we have to go back to the drawing board again. How do you decide to now approach this? Oh, I think he could have gone for the mineral line. Wait, what? He doesn't know exactly when the Cyclone would be popping out, I suppose. But he could have certainly killed quite a few workers there. ShoWTimE playing this as safely as possible, but I would not have minded seeing him commit. Okay. Cheeky little stasis ward is going to be planted down on the low ground. There is still a tech lab that has been left behind. Maybe like a souvenir right here for ShoWTimE, right? Maru being a nice guy. Always leave little gifts for your opponent. Be it a spray, be it a tech lab, be it a proxy hatchery. Whatever you need. Oh, and now ShoWTimE is thinking, okay, you know what? Your early game push didn't work. I will return the favor by going for an early game push myself. So Maru was the one previously doing a one base all in. And soon he is going to be the one that is effectively getting one base all in. The all-inner becomes the all-in-eed. Something along those lines. I know several words. Yeah. That's actually a perfect little stasis ward for him there. He can still land the command center. SCVs do swoop in. Siege tank really wanted to get some kills as well. The Marauder is going to wake up. Oh, what was that? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Blink is coming up, and we are basically just going for a full all-in. I think that's the plan. Stimpack, though, is going to be available, and we will have a third base on the back of this as well. So, how exactly do we deal with all of this? Yeah, he's being very concerned. I mean, he doesn't have energy right now for a whole lot of damage here, other than the... Yeah, I guess there's enough here for these oracles to still swoop into a mineral line, but... These stasis wards have been mostly negated. And after all of this, yeah, being traded out, Maru wanted to go one base all in, ShoWTimE wanted to go two base all in. Neither player really wants to commit too much. As the dust is settling, the supply count is awfully similar, but Maru's army is big and he's pulling the boys. Okay. This series could be decided right here, right now. Maru is smelling blood. He wants to try and figure out if he has enough to push through to the victory right now. He does see the stasis ward. Getting this entire army stasis would be a problem. Only 2 of the Marines here get caught. Only 2 of the SCVs right over there on the right. But this is still a Terran army that needs to be respected. Yeah, the SCVs are eating the stasis. But the siege tanks are able to roll through. And now we have 2 tanks in a juicy spot. Third one is likely going to be joining in as well, a little bit ahead of its brothers. There we go. And that one will be within range of the Nexus itself. Siege tanks in the meantime are trying to reinforce this too. The Stalker's picking up some of said reinforcements. Marines, tanks, whatever he can really get for himself. But he's losing the Nexus on the low ground. Now, the recall with the probes down towards the third is nice. Maru does not know about the base technically, but he can add one-on-one together. Okay, this is it. The boys are being pulled as well for ShoWTimE right now. He's trying to soak up some of the damage. Nice retargeting, though, as well by Maru. Stalkers blink into this. Is there enough for the Terran to break through? I mean, it's so much damage being dealt here. Regardless, yeah, he is going to have quite a few units still available. Obviously, Maru did lose a ton of SCVs with this push as well. So 10 of them have gone down, 16 on the side of the Protoss. Stalkers and Marines, though, are still pushing through. ShoWTimE is going to find himself caught right over there in the dead end of the map if he's not careful. Additional units are going to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Again, an absolute bloodbath. This time around, pre-10 minutes. But I think it's working out for Maru. GG. And that means that our final game for today takes place on the map Golden Wall. Now, I love this map. This is probably my favorite Legacy of the Void map across the board. We've had a lot of good maps over the years, but I feel like Golden Wall consistently gave us some of the most epic games ever. It's been a while since we've seen this map being used. But it is so nice. Made by Subaru Man. I think across the board, actually, one of the best map makers. The map is very dynamic, right? In the sense that, in this instance, ShoWTimE is going for the push, it seems, or the expansion down at the southern section of the map. But obviously, Maru could make the decision to expand up north instead. And technically, there are more bases up north, but they're further apart. You can choose how to mine the golden minerals. If you mine them from the top, you can obviously, well, take the gas over there. If you mine them from the bottom, maybe it's easier to take if you have this as your third. But all of it becomes very dynamic, and I really, really like it. Also, of course, when the golden bases run out of juice, we do have a proxy Twilight Council. You do create, like, this is a full wall off at the moment, but you do create additional openings to, well, maneuver around the map. This map is really nice. I like it. It's so good. One of the very few maps I did not get tired of after they took it out of the map pool. All right, so both players seem to be tired of this series. They have played 3 half-hour-long games. It seems like these last 2 are not gonna go the distance, although we don't really know just yet. But at least I'm getting the vibes here that ShoWTimE also does not want this game to go on for too long. We're gonna go and try and bring it home with a Dark Templar rush. Look, sometimes it's nice to go back to basics. There's obviously a lot of locations on this map too where you can hide structures. Maru could mine out some of these skinny mineral fields in the back of his own main base to go to the, well, bottom and see all of this. He's been looking around on the top section of the map, but he hasn't really been able to find too much. The problem is, even if you see the lack of base right over here, it doesn't mean that the opponent hasn't expanded. An Urubu observing all of this as well. There is, of course, an expansion, but this one is extremely late. We're gonna do it with the Prism. 1 all-in for all the marbles. There's no pathing blocker over here, like there are on some maps. Oy, oy, oy. Is this the spot? Is this the spot right over there? Oh my god, it is. What do you do when you have 2 Dark Templar in your main at the 4-minute mark? Normally you split them, but when you think about it, what are the odds of your opponent having a scan available right now? SCVs die so quickly. Looks like the Prism is going to be able to help out as well. Maybe bring a few of those DTs down towards the low ground. There's a scan. But I mean, only one of the dark... Where's the other one? Oh, it's right over here. Out of line of sight because of the refinery. How many scans are you going to have available? Well, a Raven is coming up. So at the very least, that will be a more permanent form of detection. But already a good bit of damage has been done here by ShoWTimE, who is now going to be able to mine the low ground as well. Raven is available. Does not quite see the Dark Templar hiding off to the corner. Natural expansion has been fully evacuated. Prism did slither away as well. He's trying to bait the Raven. Yeah, he does not want to tell the opponent that there is indeed a Dark Templar left behind. ShoWTimE, though, doesn't want to wait too long. Decides to move back in right now. Not all heroes wear capes, but this guy does. In the meantime, a Hellion has been scouting around, and it finds the base. Maybe this can actually deal a little bit of damage. Again, the Raven not quite paying attention. I think both players are starting to fall asleep a little bit. Maru in particular, though, is looking... I mean, with only 420 APM, he's looking slow, man. Okay, now finally he's going to be able to get rid of that 1 Dark Templar. But now the Archons are joining in the fray as well. That's the previous DTs merging together to become one. And ShoWTimE is trying to bully the opponent out of this game. He may be known as the Mauer, but this time around, Maru is getting hit in the face with a wall. Honestly, ShoWTimE is playing a phenomenal series. Like, if you think about all the time that StarCraft 2 has been around for, right? At basically any point in history, and I don't mean this with any disrespect at all, but a best of 5 between ShoWTimE and Maru, 99% of people would guess Maru. Just because Maru has been an absolute beast. But ShoWTimE has been on the up and up. He's been looking phenomenal lately. A wide plethora of playstyles. A variety of strategies. Across the board, he has not been playing the same strat twice. And now he's leading the final game here, forcing an all-in out of Maru. Now, we saw this in the previous game. Sure, the situation here for ShoWTimE is excellent, but Maru still has one final attack left in him. This is, though, why I am really liking the spot. I mean, the Terran units are going to be passing by this, but charge will be done. Charge is such a nice upgrade to have. Maru's going to see that something here is not quite right. I mean, this third Nexus is a completely unnecessary task. What about the push? We do have a sentry as well, by the way. Guardian Shield gets activated. He decides to move in. We do see the anti-armor missile connecting with a lot of this, though. The Archons are trying to just get damage done wherever possible, but the siege tanks are going to go down. SCVs are falling, but the rest of the Terran army did win the majority of the fight. The problem is that there are shield batteries on the back of this as well, and more reinforcements are coming up. I think ShoWTimE is getting the job done. And just like that, ShoWTimE eliminates Maru out of this tournament. What a phenomenal series. Honestly, an absolute banger. Yeah, you can tell after like an hour and a half of playing Macro, the players are also just drained. They're just exhausted. But obviously, these games are still action-packed. When you have two guys with 400 APM trying to effectively one-base each other the entire way through, it's an absolute spectacle. Phenomenal series, and, well, a well-deserved victory right there for ShoWTimE. GG's.